BXB. It's in the game!
Hey guys, it's me, Ben, back with another one of my quick video reviews, and today I'm looking at something I've never played before, even though it's a series of games that have been around for nearly 30 years, and that is Fire Pro Wrestling. And this iteration on PS4 and also available on PC is called World. So it's Fire Pro Wrestling World on PS4, and as many of you may be aware, some of you may not be aware, I'm a big professional wrestling fan. So it's kind of crazy to me that I've never before played this franchise of video games, and it's a long one. It's been around a long time. There's a lot of real hardcore dedicated fans for it. It's huge in Japan, and over the 30 years that this game's been coming out, Fire Pro Wrestling has come out on like so many platforms, from PC to SNES to PS2 to WonderSwan. This thing has been everywhere. There were late releases slowed down a lot, and this is actually the first proper release in about, give or take 10 years. There was a re-release of Fire Pro Wrestling on the Xbox Live Arcade system, but this is definitely the first new iteration we've had in some time. The first thing you notice as a newcomer to Fire Pro Wrestling, which I imagine a lot of people would be playing it for the first time on PS4 for a franchise that had been dormant for 10 years, is that the presentation's bad. You've got like 3 repeating music tracks, you've got these really hard to understand menus, and to be honest, nothing is really told to the player about how this game or how this experience is meant to work. I knew a few things going in. I knew this was a 2D wrestling game that sort of had pixel art, sort of a obfuscated isometric view, which focused more on the Japanese wrestling. And on the PS4 version now, and now on the PC version of Fire Pro Wrestling World, there is actually a story mode focused around New Japan Pro Wrestling, of which I have very little knowledge. I know there are some very good wrestlers out there at the moment. I know that there are some times when WWE will sort of connect with them a little bit, like they had Chris Jericho against Kenny Omega recently at one of their big events, which was an amazing match I made a point of watching. However, you know, as a product, as a franchise itself, I don't have a lot to say about New Japan Pro Wrestling. But let's just talk about Fire Pro Wrestling World right now. This game is not user-friendly. The onboarding is frankly awful. I didn't know there was any tutorial in this until I spoke in person to someone who had more familiarity with the series, because nowhere is the training mode really made obvious for you to experience. And even after I found it, it didn't really help with my understanding of how this game actually works. Now, the other big feature I knew about Fire Pro Wrestling World is that it has a customization suite, which means that you can create just about any character or wrestler you could ever imagine, and you can share them with the community and download those shared wrestlers. Now, that was an ordeal in itself. Took me a while just to find the option, and then it bumped me out into a web interface. This is a PS4 game that opened the PS4 web browser to the half-Japanese Fire Pro Wrestling website, in which I had to navigate and try and use this browser and then subscribe to wrestlers so that I could download them. And then even then, they didn't appear in my game until I restarted the game, in which they then loaded in. But then that wasn't the end of it. I had to create a stable for them and import them from the retired section of the roster into this stable, so that I could even play with all these characters that had been created by the community. The whole interface is a mess and needs a great deal of work. It makes the sort of initial impressions of this game seem archaic and like it hasn't been updated in 30 years. Maybe it hasn't. Maybe that's the charm people love about this. Fans of this series want this experience to continue in ways that they're familiar with, and therefore it's never changed. I don't know. This is my first experience with Fire Pro Wrestling World specifically, and the franchise in general, as I've stated a few times. And let's be honest, this is not a good initial impression. So let's get into the wrestling itself. Because there's no real tutorialization, I was looking at things like the control scheme, which really didn't explain anything either. It just told me that there was a light, medium, and a heavy attack button, so there was a run button and a pin button. And that's about it. It didn't explain anything. So I dug through and found those sort of tutorials, which, by the way, are really difficult in themselves, and I struggled just to clear a few of them, and then got into some of the matches. Now, the matches are kind of boring, guys. It's all timing-based grapple moves, strikes feel really bad, the presentation is uninspired. Like I said, there's like 3 repeating music tracks, and there's 2 rings that you get to wrestle in. Look, I know the WWE 2K games have their problems, but presentation and, you know, how to bring across the theatre of the product is not one of them. So, are the fighter mechanics themselves decent? I guess, if you're used to them, if you've spent years playing with them, to a new player, they are just confusing and unenjoyable. It doesn't play like a wrestling game, it doesn't play like a fighting game. I'm not really sure what it plays like, but to me, someone fresh to the series, I had no fun at all with it. So let's go back to the aforementioned sort of story mode with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I actually quite like the presentation in this. It's text heavy, but the imagery that's presented is actually quite characterful, and I actually got a sense of these wrestlers and made me want to check out more about New Japan Pro Wrestling and really get into that product. I've been meaning to do it for a while, but my friends who are big into that sort of side of wrestling definitely recommend it a lot. So I think I'm actually going to take the leap and start checking out that sort of product that comes out of Japan with those wrestlers that I'm just about starting to get to recognize and understand and know about a little bit more. And that was fun enough. But as a whole, with the awful presentation, with the confusing menus, with the repetitive music, with the fighting systems that I just barely could understand, from the visuals being so poor, everything about this game just feels dated, and I'm sure it does a great job in servicing the fans of Fire Pro Wrestling. However, for someone who is more familiar with the WWE product, who is more familiar with the Ukes and 2K video games, which I'm sure a lot of people are, and, you know, not necessarily excited by it, maybe even disappointed by it. You're looking for alternatives. You'll see a new wrestling game come out with touted customization options. You want to give it a go. You want to like it. I know I did. But man, there's a lot of barriers to break through in this game just to enjoy it. So because of all those things, I can only give Fire Pro Wrestling World on PS4 2 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.